So the first of those problems I want to address is that stepping. Okay, so I'm come to the rasterize here, and what I will do is what we can use is this velocity blur, which should help. You saw a little change there, and you can see what it's doing is blurring the density along the kind of length, I suppose, of the velocity. Okay, so I'm going to push the shutter to 1, and you can see it's stretching it even more there, and then the offset I'm going to set to -1 so that it's kind of trailing behind the points. Okay, and then samples just so that we get better quality, but it doesn't take a long, the 10 samples doesn't take a long time, so might as well get more. So this way, if you imagine the point kind of falling in this line, it's hopefully now each frame these lines will overlap and we'll get a continuous line, and we won't get that kind of annoying stepping thing going on. Okay, so before we configure this, make sure you don't forget to go back to the first frame so you don't lose, so you don't try and simulate all the way through and get a crash. Okay, so as I said, yeah, I'm just gonna set this to manual at the moment, so it's not trying to update the first frame every time I make changes in here. Set that to manual or turn off the simulation, or both. So yeah, I want to animate the density over the simulation. Okay, so I'm gonna come to the beginning pretty much, so I don't know, frame 15, and just alt click on 1 there to set a keyframe, so it'll be 1 up to frame 15, and then I'm going to go to frame about 150. Okay, so that's where we simulated up to earlier, and drop this to about half, I'd say. Sorry, 0.5. Alt click on that. Okay, so it will gradually go down. It will follow a curve, so that by default you can see it says Bezier there. So we've got this nice kind of gradual curve going down, and it will go down to 0.5 for the rest of the simulation, so we have a bit less density coming in, so it'll kind of soften out towards the end of the simulation, which seems logical to me. Right, in the look here, that doesn't really matter. That's only going to affect, visualizing in here in the simulation itself. We'll turn off emission. Well, again, that doesn't really matter. Solving, so shape, this is really important. I'm just going to turn off the dissipation. Disturbance is good, we want that, but we've got these 2 methods of calculating the scale, and I think continuous is a newer method, which is, as you can see, much simpler. And I'm going to bring the scale down, so the size of the kind of each of those, the little bumps that hopefully it will break down what we were talking about, those big kind of lumpy surfaces. Before I forget, back to the sourcing, I'm going to drop this down by half as well, the velocity to 0.5, just to kind of, I just felt it was a bit over the top, and this way the point will go ahead and the dust will kind of trail behind it but go in the same direction, which kind of makes sense. The bigger, heavier grit should be traveling faster than the smoke itself, right? So that's fine in here. We'll be using by default sparsity, which is the new, well, I suppose now it's not new, it came out with Houdini 18, but will save a lot of time in terms of our simulation. We're not simulating a whole kind of box around our simulation, we're just simulating the points which we need to. So we don't need to do anything in here, it's all on by default. I am going to close the simulation, so it's like just setting a ground plane, this basically. Below -15 should be fine. So that means it's basically like a barrier, so I don't want, this should help save us some time. It will collide with this, but our camera is not going to go down that far. It's basically to stop the smoke kind of continuously going down, and it will just give us a bigger area to simulate. So this is, we're not going to see this, but should save us a bit of time hopefully. I'm going to go down to 0.025. You know, obviously this depends on your system, how much detail you're willing to go down to. The low, it's not necessarily the lower the better. It will affect the simulation. You know, different voxel sizes, you get more detail, but it changes how the values are vectored around. So you can't just you know, go from something from 0.3 to 0.25 shouldn't be a big difference. But if you're, you know, doing something like 0.05 and then going down to you know, I don't know, 1.5, you're not going to get the same, you know, they're going to be big differences there. So I'm going to go to 0.025, and this should be the same there. And I believe that's it. We'll obviously want to set up a file cache to save this out. Let's go to the export actually. So we don't have a temperature, so let's turn that off. We don't have flame, we don't have color, just density and velocity. This will be, well, it depends whether we do the motion blur in the render or not, but we'll want to, you know, save that out. So that's it. Let's go, oh, the start frame, that could help us a bit as well. So if we go right to the top here, turn this back to auto update and just wait until we've actually got particles coming in. So, oh, there they are. So just wait for the first sign of particles there. So let's just say frame 40 to be safe. Okay, so I'm going to set my first frame to frame 40. Okay, so let's set up a file cache. Oh, actually, sorry, one more thing. We'll drop a volume compress, so this will save a lot of, because, you know, these simulations get really heavy. So this will basically, if we just check this update compression settings and just check use 16-bit floats, so that will just change the amount, change it from 32 bits to 16 bits basically. Okay, and for us, you know, we're not going to see the difference there, but your you know, the space that this takes up on disk will be significantly smaller. Okay, so just doing that helps out a lot, but it shouldn't really have an effect on the simulation, on the quality of it. All right, and then just a file cache. So yeah, frame 40. So we can delete that. Go from frame 40 to 250, and let's save this into Geo. We'll do another folder in there called dust, and then in there we'll do 2 folders. So like I said, we're doing 2 different, we're doing 2 simulations. So I'll do excuse me, heavy dust, another folder, sorry, I just by habit I don't like having capital letter at the start, another / and then just call it yeah, heavy dust dot $f3.geo. Okay, and that's basically it. Save filter, I think that's fine. I'm going to simulate just a few frames here just to make sure that I haven't forgotten anything and nothing weird's going on. So let's go back to the first frame here, turn the simulation back on. I'm going to leave that on for the moment just as we're simulating this first part. So I'm just going to let this go a sec. Okay, that all looks fine. It's simulating pretty quickly. So back to the start. And I'm going to, yeah, cache this out. Again, there are a couple of tweaks that we need to address. Yeah, again, I didn't want to go, you know, cache out the whole thing and kind of use that. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going to time shift this just that we get the one frame. Oops, delete those channels. Okay, this just for scale, and then I'm going to do that same thing again. So right click and go to Pyro, configure billowy smoke. Okay, and this is just a handy quick way of configuring, you know, so we're not waiting for this cache to come in and all this business. Just a quick way of kind of looking at values. Okay, so I'm going to template that, come around here. Okay, so then we can see a sense of the scale of this compared to our bridge. And I'm just going to play that through. Right, and now set those the disturbance settings to what I had before, right? So I'm going to turn the dissipation off. Disturbance, we had it on continuous, and I put it down to 0.05, I think. Right, so let's watch that. Which is okay. Let's go. What we can also do, if we alt click and drag on this and then turn the disturbance off on 1 and move it over a little bit and merge them together, then we can compare them directly side by side. You know, this way doing that here would be kind of too heavy. So if we visualize it down here and then oops, don't want that, and then just move it over a bit like that, get them side by side. Okay, so this one has no disturbance, so we're seeing, just looking for the difference between them. Yeah, there's a little bit, still a bit subtle, but I think for our scale, you know, for the size of the bridge, I think what I'll do is push this up even further. Sorry, push the scale back to what it was, so 0.1 there. So you get it really kind of breaking up that surface. Now you can see a substantial difference there. Okay. Another thing I want to add, I'm going to dive in here and I want to add some wind. So just a general slow wind pushing everything to the side. Okay, so if we drop a gas, I think it's just called gas wind. Plug that in there. Okay, and the direction, so this is going along in the X direction, so that's following the length of the bridge. I want to go across the bridge, so I'm going to change the direction to Z. Okay, so we'll just leave it at the defaults to start and see what that looks like. It's probably, yeah, way too strong, so we just want something really subtle. So let's come down, we can try 0.1. Still, it's okay, but still, you know, I want it to be really subtle. 0.05. Okay, let me go out. Again, I want to see, you know, the scale of it, you know, compared to the bridge. Go back here. Doesn't really look like it's moving. It's gone a tiny bit, but let's go up a little bit more, kind of split the difference, you know, 0.07. Let's try that. Yeah, that looks good. So back to the start. What we can do is just dive in here and copy this. Back here and just paste it inside, connect that up, and then that disturbance we just set it to 0.1, so the scale, right? You can see it. The other one is just a bit small, so just get rid of them and that, and we can come back here. Oh, another thing, sorry, I did forget. Another thing I want to do is change the change this. So as I said before, this will be colliding with that bottom edge, and it's going to be, you know, that could spread out a bit. So what we can also do to save some time is, instead of it colliding with the bottom, is that it just kind of disappears. So change that back to open, so it's not doing, in fact that doesn't matter, but I'm just going to leave it on open, and I'm actually going to put on this max size so that let me get rid of that light, it's annoying, so that we get a, it's like the smoke will just disappear if it passes through this barrier. Okay, so the scale for this, I want it definitely, what we can do is drop a box to use as our size. Okay, and so the center is, you know, the center of this box, and that's the size, so we can match that and go like 0 0 0. Oh sorry, no, 0, center is 0 and the size is 10. So that's what we've got at the moment, right? I think maybe you can actually, no, we can't see it here. Okay, so we can use this box to, you know, decide where we want it. So we'll need to move over in Z a little bit in terms of the size, just 2. And then I don't want it to be cutting off at all in X and Z, so we'll do like 20 and 20, let's say, that's plenty. And then in the height, I think 10 should be fine. You know, I don't want it going, whoops, don't want any rotation. I don't want it going any lower than that. Okay, so we just copy those values, 20, 10, 20, and then 2. So 2 here, 20, 10, 20. And as I said, the smoke will just pass through. It won't collide and kind of spread out on the bottom then. Okay. Okay, so reset simulation just to be safe. Come here and save that to disk.